Oh, this is the what is this? What is this, Martin? Oh yeah, it's the FAQ of Design Thinking 101. It's the show. It's the massive show. No, it's just a bunch of answers to questions that we get from people who participated in the
Cool.
Design Thinking 101 masterclass. And now specifically, we are answering questions about customer journey mapping and customer journey mapping in the context of design thinking, but also service design and UX and all these agile methodologies. Um, However, so some of the questions I received were about the difference between innovation, if you use a tool like journey mapping, innovation and improvement. So
Yeah.
I was explaining that if you before you start using the tool, you have to know what you're going to use it for. Why do you need that
Yeah.
tool? So first is
Yeah.
like, what do I need? And then you say, hey, journey mapping
Yeah.
might be a useful tool.
Yeah.
Now, so one of the things I said is that if you are going to innovate, meaning in my simplified brain, doing something that you're not doing. So really, it's not something you're doing,
Yeah.
and it's also not something that is being done by your competitors or anyone else because it's new,
Yeah.
uh, opposed to something which is improvement is something that you are already doing. It's you're delivering this,
Yeah.
that you're supplying this,
Yeah.
and you're looking at some of the things you can really improve.
Yeah.
And then the question was, so first, what is exactly, how do you, would you kind of, if you, because if you start thinking about these things more deeply, you're
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, well, how far can you improve things until it becomes innovation?
Yeah.
Because the language around is so fuzzy, because I think
Yeah.
everybody wants to kind of innovate. So
Yeah.
the solution, and it's really hard to really innovate, to really do innovation. So the solution was we just call everything innovation. And so we can tick the box. We're
Yeah.
all innovating, and we're
Yeah.
saying, are you really? But then there's radical innovation, adjacent innovation. So we got all this language which makes it more fuzzy.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk a little bit about innovation versus improvement and the journey map. So
Yeah.
is it different? What's the difference? How do you use that tool difference? I mean, so can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, so I think I mean it's just a tool. So it's a tool, and it really depends how you and this is I think the most important role of a designer or when you approach design thinking. Making that program or making that process, how you're going to go from A to B, is part of the designing of the outcomes. So whether it's radical or whether it's improvement, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on so when you come up with a completely new product, there's no comparison yet, then but of course you're trying to solve when you want to create a new market, you're trying to solve something that people are doing. So people have, they want something, or they're trying to do something in a very clumsy way, maybe at the moment. This is your starting insight. And then you want to figure out how are they doing this? How are they hacking that process at the moment? Or what kind of, workarounds do they have to go from A to B? And so this is, I mean, it's one of the tools that you can use perfectly to figure out how they are actually doing it. And then you can identify, what are the kind of silly steps that they've, undertaken in that because they have no way of doing it in a smarter way, where you can say, okay, we can bring something in that helps people to make that process much easier.
Mhm. But if you're innovating, I think that there's, a lot of the questions and topics that we talk about are also about insecurity.
Yeah,
So it is this, and specifically when you're innovating, you are in the unknown because
yeah,
you're going to do something and you don't know what
yeah,
it's going to be
yeah,
because it's not invented yet,
yeah,
or you didn't think about it yet. Even if you
yeah,
do something, so even if you look at sort of other industries and you say, well, we can, if we apply this thing from that industry in our industry, that's really different, very radical. I mean,
yeah,
this has been, these things
yeah,
happen obviously quite
yeah,
often, but before you do it, you don't know. You don't know. So it's again, you're really you're insecure,
Yeah.
And you're getting all blurry like me now. So right, so which is called the fuzzy front end of innovation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then a tool like journey mapping or any other tool really, in this stage should, I mean, it doesn't, so in my mind it doesn't. Sometimes people look for security, so they look for
Yeah.
something to give them answers.
Yeah.
But I think the difference again between, innovation and improvement is also that, you know what you're doing when you're improving, because
Yeah.
that's basically often, especially when these are smaller improvements,
Yeah.
often you kind of already know, like your website is crappy,
Yeah.
and then your customer says your website is crappy in your
Yeah.
journey map, and you're like, yeah, I knew that,
Yeah.
so but it helps, because then you can go to your organization and say our customers, there's like a mirror, right? So
Yeah.
this is what our customers see. They know they know
Yeah.
our website is crappy, I told you
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you can't escape it. So the voice of the customer helps you, gives you some kind of strength and some kind of,
Yeah.
it helps you make decisions. It helps you
Exactly.
convince other people, create buy-in. The
Yeah.
voice of the customer is such a powerful tool, because you can't escape it. This is what your customer says and things,
Yeah.
etc. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
But in innovation, there is no customer, because you aren't providing this service or this product or this whatever. So
Well, I mean, there's a potential customer. You don't know, but you're trying to solve something that you have assumed, or that is your projection, that there's a potential need, and the only way
yes,
to figure out what that potential need is by creating options, creating a lots of options to figure, and those are kind of so you don't have to see so your prototypes or your options that you create are research elements. So you put
sure,
them
yeah.
in front of people to figure out, what is there, how does it resonate.
Yeah, but on a very practical level, where do you? So okay, let's. We need to. So my boss told me, yeah, no, we need to innovate, because we're getting so much competition,
Yeah.
and the market is saturated,
Yeah.
and so we really have to come up with a new market. Really innovation, real new market, something we're not doing.
Yeah.
We need to provide, come up with a value that customers even don't know that they need it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
many of the innovations,
Of
you
course.
can't you can't ask your
No.
customer whether they want
No.
this or not.
No.
So we do research, and this actually kind of, I have to say this. I know I've been saying this too often, but um, there's this story about Ford,
Yeah.
that Ford said, no, if you ask, if you ask people, if they needed a car, then they don't know how to answer. Because they will need a faster horse,
Faster
basically,
horses. Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
so that's because that's their context. That's what they understood. That's there. They can't imagine a car, so they can't. You can't ask your customer what they want. My counter argument here is, they said what they wanted. They wanted a faster horse. A
Exactly.
car is a faster horse. So if you
Yeah.
listen carefully to what your customer says when they say faster horse, that's
Yeah.
just a solution, which means faster. Faster can also be closer, can also be
Yeah.
you have to build your cities differently. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that people, or can access things quicker, is
Yeah.
also like the internet. It's not just a
So
car. So a car is just one of the solutions for faster, but your customer said exactly what they wanted
yeah.
or needed, an unmet need, faster, because they understood. And then
Yeah.
Ford built a car, and that became the solution that kind of dominated this thinking in this our world at the moment. But it's just one of the solutions.
Yeah, but what you're doing here, and that I think is very interesting, is, and this is, I think, one of the most difficult parts for a lot of people who are not used to, or who are not designers, or who are not creative, is you make a creative interpretation of the data, and so and that is for a lot of people is kind of difficult, because I agree with you. So you have to listen to people, but that doesn't mean that you have to take everything they say literally.
Hmm.
Also, because people are biased, we are very vulnerable to anything that comes up, and we have only kind of our experience to draw upon. So it's your role as a designer, and I think that is a very important element. It's not only about research; it's also about imagination. And you have to imagine, and then making a lot of options based on that imagination, because you cannot innovate when you don't tap into your imagination. What could be there? What could we
Yeah,
try?
and I spoke to this head of design at Microsoft, Bill Buxton, a
Mm,
long time ago, and he talked about the long nose of innovation, and what he
mm,
meant was, and he had all these examples of that,
yeah,
for a lot of people, an innovative or a new product or something that you've never seen before just appears. They go like,
yeah,
bang, here's a
exactly.
smartphone, and here's a
Yeah,
smartwatch, and here's a
yeah.
bang. There's these things that
It's nonsense.
suddenly are there,
Yeah,
but it's nonsense because
yeah,
that technology has been kind of created a long time ago, and it's been iterating. And yes,
yeah,
it's not the same company; it can be different
yeah,
companies,
exactly.
but it's always built upon something else that already existed. So it's a slower process, and it doesn't just appear. Is you get your and it's always innovation is always a combination of things that
Yes.
existed, because
It's the
there's no
Stephen Johnson book. He actually has a nice drawing on that, and I think, and it's
what's the
true. I mean,
title? Stephen Johnson.
about imagination. I will try to send the link
All
to
right,
you.
we'll put it
It's
in
it's
the
a
comment section.
video animation. It's really nice, and it shows this idea of how it's also about collisions. It's about slow hunch. It's about suddenly you have some insight which you cannot work with it, and then someone else comes and he has another part of that, and it comes together. So I mean, these radical innovations are not something that is just popping out of the sky. Never. I mean, even the Ford motor car, the T Ford. I mean, it took him also like 20 or 30 iterations before he came with the T Ford or the T34. I think it was the 34th iteration. His first car was a car for high end, very expensive, and it looked like a carriage only with
Yes,
an engine.
exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean, his biggest innovation was designing a car for the masses, but that was not what he intended. He wanted to make cars for the wealthy people. I mean, so but he discovered this along the way after lots of failures, and I think that is the biggest thing. It's not a point in time. It's
yes,
innovation is really a
exactly.
process of many iterations and having the stamina. And
Yeah,
that's the problem with how we usually think about these innovations. Like, okay, we do
yeah.
a workshop
Because
or we have a
no,
sprint or whatever.
yeah, we have to do it in a sprint,
Yeah,
Maarten. It has to
yeah,
kind of. We did a sprint.
yeah,
Where's the
and it didn't
innovation?
work out. Yeah,
Where's the innovation? We just
yeah,
did a sprint. Now, what else can we do?
yeah.
Right? No.
Not a sprint. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just
So
do
there's
it.
no point.
Maybe do another sprint. Who knows? Yeah, because we knew, because that has
Yeah.
been working before so
Yeah.
wonderfully.
Yeah.
Just push people and into these kind of pressure cookers and
Yeah.
hackathons, because
Yeah.
that's
Great.
where our biggest innovations came from.
Mm, maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know. I
No.
haven't. But if you
No. But
disagree, please leave some
yes, of
comments
course.
below, because we love to hear more about those things.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we talked enough about this
Yep.
topic.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Martin, again. And
Lovely.
yeah, see you next time.
All right. Bye bye.
Ding, 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 ding. There's the jingle again.